there. There's that tree. Now we're walking up over the hill. The corral area.
I guess the history behind it is that, what was it, last year?
Yes.
Like last winter, the cattle, there was a really bad storm and the cattle got into this little draw because it's shaded, they got out of the wind. It stayed warmer down in there. But when they stayed down in there, they were like lots of manure and urine and everything was just deposited in that little draw down in there. And then they got a rain and all that nutrients washed directly down into that pond. And that's a problem because there's a tank that's feeding basically all those paddocks you can see down there off of that pond. And so the tank got so rank that the cattle just wouldn't drink it. And they eventually, Greg eventually was able to put some hypochlorite in there and get them slowly to start drinking it. But it's still, it's carried over, and even now it's probably was the dirtiest tank that we had. And so we're like, we got to do something about this. So we decided we're going to fence them off that pond because they don't need to be in there because there's a tank down there. And then this big stretch of trees also got a fence around it. So now we're keeping them out of that area permanently. So all that vegetation is going to start growing back seriously, using up all that nutrients. And if they do end up, gathering up here in those honey locusts or around here, there's enough of a buffer zone going all the way down through that draw of unmanured vegetation to just sort of drain out all those excess nutrients and before it hits the pond. And you can already see that the tank's starting to clean up. So.
Was that the fence the other day that was on last year?
Yeah.
It's more recent fence in the video. Yeah.
So when the cattle come in here and they're grazing, they're going to graze down this strip. And so what we did to keep them from getting trapped down there is we have a little, Ben calls it a gate, and we had this argument. It's an opening. And so there's an opening down here, and then there's an opening on the other side of the pond. And we ran the wires up and over, so that way the cattle go grazing down in there, and they don't have to come all the way back up and around to get to water. They can shoot right through those gaps, and it just keeps the flow going. Also, we can drive through with the four-wheeler easier and stuff, so it makes it kind of nice. But
somebody asked me, oh, aren't you ever going to graze that again? We didn't put a gate in there. That's the beautiful thing about high tensile and timeless and fiberglass corners. It's going to be nothing to put a gate in there. We probably will, just so we maybe, in the summertime you get a lot of forage, just to put the cows in there for a couple hours, let them knock it down. They're not going to drop that much manure in there. And if you don't, it's just all going to grow up into brush. So it's not like we're never going to get another animal day off of that. It's just we're going to control when they're in there. Greg, you got anything you wanted to add?
You could cut the wires, the 12 gauge wire, and put a high wire, and they go right under, and you wouldn't have to even put a gap.
Yeah.
So. Yep. It's a filter. That's what they put in is a filter for that pond, and it's going to be a diverse vegetation and filter in all kinds of ways. So it's great. 300 foot is known as that's just a.
Yep.
Accepted by the water quality folks as a great distance. They'll give you multiple points if you're doing some kind of scoring on it for a 300-foot filter, and that's about what we have here. So it's good, and it's got different veins that it's serving, so they've done a real good job here.
I think it comes in 38-foot lengths, and why I don't have it here is because of the trucking. It cost me $4,000 to get a load of it delivered up here. But in Texas, Oklahoma, you can get that stuff pretty darn cheap. So I'd be looking at sucker rod for corners. They come in 1.25 inch diameters. If you drive a 6-foot sucker rod in there, that's a corner. That's going to make you a good corner. Yep.
He said they use them in oil for about 20 years and pull them out.
All right, let's head over this little hill. But we're walking on
This
here,
is a corner, so they have it going around there, so they put a tensioner right there, and then on this one right here, put a tensioner here, so they pull it tight from both angles into that. So you can't get those fiberglass rods anymore, so he said get a sucker rod is what he was talking about.
4 yards, there's concrete here, and that little tank you see there on the right, that was a complete colossal waste of money. That's gravity flow. It's the largest one you can buy for pride of the farm, a 2-hole anyway. And there's no pressure on that tank. And so it's just worthless. It doesn't supply any water at all to a large herd. If you had 30 cows on that, you'd be good to go. But you can't put 350 on it. So this is our winter system right here.
He said NRCS.
Same deal. We come in and cut the ice off, throw it over on the side, and each morning we come out here, we cut the ice off, and we're good to go again. This is the hypochlorite. So there's hypochlorite tablets in the Gatorade. The reason that anchor's on there is the cows will get their tongue on that and throw it out on the ground. They're not going to throw it on the ground, that anchor on there.
So why does one float?
You want a bobber to keep that thing suspended.
Oh, okay, so it's not on the bottom.
Yep, you can't just throw a tablet in there and let it hit the bottom. You're not going to get any chlorinating effect at all. It's not going to clean the bacteria up on your tank.
Another thing, my guard dogs love those floating in there. They'll carry them off all the time.
So this tank has a 12-inch wide well right in the middle. It goes down 3 feet, and then it goes clear back to that pond. Now, as I trenched off that pond, I ran a T into the weaning pen over there. Now, that weaning pen is being fed by a quick coupler, snapped into a 100-gallon tank, and it'll water 25 headed steers without any pressure, no pump, no, not anything. I love this tank. It's been in. This has been in since 2001, and it's never failed. It's the original tank. This is the pride of the farm tank. It's getting a little wear on it, right there. They sell different ones, but folks, when you buy them, look for this. Look for the ribs. See that? See the ribs on there? If your tank doesn't have ribs, it will bust open. You got to have those ribs on there. It's got a drain in it. We usually drain it twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall. Clean them up. Get you a scrub brush. Just get all the junk out.
How long has it been here?
That's been there since 2001.
How'd you come into the bottom of that? You just
Yeah, I cut a hole. I cut a hole in the bottom of that, and there's a pipe adapter, and I got it from Water and Sewer Supply there in Columbia. If you go to your municipality that supplies those heavy-duty plumbing fittings for your cities, there's usually a place. Ours is called Water and Sewer Supply. They don't pack anything but heavy-duty, tough stuff. And believe it or not, there is an awesome fitting in the bottom of this thing. It's Schedule 80. It's a 2-part. So you've got... It's a 2-part. There's a part that goes in from the bottom, and it's got a female thread on it. And on the top, you screw your male on, and that's what goes onto your valve. You're not going to break them off. It's got a rubber seal on it, a big old thick rubber seal. So the more you tighten it, it sucks that rubber down against that tank. It's never leaked, ever.
So it's like a bulkhead?
Yep, and so I paid for that corral, but the dog did help me on the rock, because he needed good rock. So we ran a circle driveway, so I can come around with a big stock trailer. We actually loaded semis out of that corral. Go get a potter and loader, burst it up to that corral, back the semi.
Concrete walls. It's concrete in here. Shoot here. That wouldn't be too fun to drink out of. That was the holding pen that we first started with. So they come down here on the back side of this and load in here.
Probably shouldn't have been down there. young heifer. Happened to be the most beautiful heifer in a herd. And I'm like, Meg, you gotta be kidding me. No, Meg, she turned. So I grabbed the step-in post and I walked down there. I had her up here in the cleaning pen. Before I even got to her, here she comes, charging me. I'm like, honey, you just got a one-way ticket to town. And Meg started crying. She's like, Greg, you cannot sell that heifer. She's too beautiful. I'm like, Meg, she is not too beautiful. She's ugly. She's got a terrible attitude. All she's going to do is cause us issues.
We're dying.
Yep. So I loaded her and the calf, ran her right into the crowd, backed the trailer up, and I sold her.
The intern too?
No, I kept that. Yeah.
Somebody left the farm.
There's been a few of them that I wanted to load. Not like what I've got today. I'm so fortunate. Where are you at, Ben and Isaac?
Back here.
Yeah. I was telling Greg at lunch, I've had this farm my whole life. In the last 6 months, I've never enjoyed it more. And that's a direct reflection of those two young men over there. Yeah, they come to work every day, 6:30. I look up the driveway, it's foggy, you can't even see. Here comes Ben. Here comes Isaac. It's 6:29. I'm like, you gotta be kidding. It's every day. I mean, you know, they're very, very punctual. I tell them to do something, even if it's tough, they'll do it. And, you know, they're always giving me suggestions. Folks, when you get young people out on the land, they think about things differently. I'll have a head of steam going. I'm like, let's go do this and let's do it this way. And Ben will step up, or Isaac's like, Rick, you ever thought about doing it this way? And it's always a better way than what I thought. About 99% of the time. I'm like, man, keep it up, guys, keep it up. I need that. I need that input. So those of you that are thinking about internships, you know, you're getting, 55, 60, you got a town job, whatever. Maybe you want to be around, be away from the farm a little more. Think about bringing young people onto your farm. Make sure you give them a good place to live. And treat them with respect. Treat them, Ian has a rock that he keeps in his pocket. He's got this rock. And it's a very smooth rock. And he says, he rubs that rock when he comes up against a difficult person. Because he said when he rubs that rock, it reminds him to be the person that he would like to meet that day. And he said, I got to admit, I've got a hole rubbed in that rock now. I've come across some pretty difficult people in my life. But treat people the way you'd like to be treated. Respect. Okay? That goes a long way. And I think you have to spend time with your interns. You need to teach them everything you know. I'm pretty much an open book. I try and share with these young men everything that I know. So when they go on in their next chapter of life, they've got a good head start.
Up close of the bale roller. Got the spikes. Got the skid so it drops down. Those don't get caught on a stump. That's why he has those there. Got with the chain where it keeps the spike in so it doesn't work its way out. This is where when you crank this back, this arm right here will only come to there, so far back. So it doesn't come back, and they got the springs on it as well. You got a 2-inch hitch up here on the front where you can just connect to a four-wheeler. Here's the gear we're gonna go over. Fire. Here's the bucket with the valve and the float and the poly wire. Coupler on the other end of the hose comes off. Right there. There's Spider.
Put up some high tensile for you. Today we're going to show you how, say this was a stretch of 1,000 feet. We'll be pretending that this is a stretch of 1,000 feet that we're putting in, or something, or a stretch of fence. So just so you can see how it works, see how we put it up. easier. It's easier. Like we can explain it to you, but until you see it, you won't really understand it. So, what do you want to start by stretching it?
Yeah.
We can. You want to use timeless? We can put this timeless post and just run it.
That's fine.
Show how to do it.
Yeah, put that timeless post
Says the rep.
So what we did with the timeless, because it has holes in it and it's already pre-drilled, in order to run the holes through, you got to get a straight line for the post first. And so we use this poly wire to get kind of like a chalk line, to get our straight line. So then you can take your post. Let's get the side. Stick it right up against there. And you only need to drive these things till the top, until the sticker disappears. That's right, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Does it matter which direction from the animal pressure?
Yeah. So if you're say if your animals are on this side, you want the pressure when they push to have this as a blocker. You know, you don't want them to be pushing and pushing out this way. So say we're saying the animals are on this side, so we're going to drive the flat side this way.
So if you're using a clip and you want to keep it on the outside, you can do that. And it goes through. That's what these little notches are. You can bring your clip around and wrap it on each side. You can do that. Or you can go through the hole.
Yeah, if you're clipping them, you might want to run it this way. That way it's pushing that way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? But
Yeah.
since we're running through the holes, we push it this way. The animals will push, and it goes against this flat piece.
They're pushing on your fence. Check your charger too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll drive. We found that you kind of got to tap them first, because otherwise they go and twist on you. And once you get it started.
Oh. Good luck getting that out of the
When you're going, what I like to do is I just take these clippers with me. Nipix pliers. I don't know what the specs are on them or anything. You just buy them.
They're good.
Yep. I think Timeless is selling some of them.
Yeah. They're from Germany.
So you set your spinning jenny. That's what this is, with all your high tensile on one end of where you're going to end the fence, and we're going to stretch it all the way to the other end. So
You have to use one of those
Yeah.
before you want to clip it.
Yep.
So Ben, come here and help him pick that up. Always get your jenny back behind the direction of the pole. That young man right there where he's setting. Right there. Yep. And this spinning jenny, folks, it actually has a clutch on it. Right here. If you tighten that bolt up, it puts more pressure on that spring underneath there, and it'll come off slower. If you ease up on that, it'll backspin on you. And now you got it wrecked.
So when you're going down that stretch, if you're just running a single wire, what we did, or when we were putting in this wire, we'll take a ratchet with you. Oh, this one just took a wire from last week.
Get your pliers.
We also got the daisy. You want to put the daisy?
Yeah, just put a daisy.
That's the traditional ratchet, but those are different.
The daisy pensioners.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar.
This one you don't have to cut the wire to get them on.
That's my favorite.
Yep. So you're gonna take
Same here.
you're gonna take the daisy with you, or I mean, you can take the tool with you if you want to carry it. Did you say like a?
I usually leave the tool and my tensioner right in the middle of the wire. When you pull that first one out, just leave it there. If you're pulling 5 wires, you're going to need that handle right where your tensioner is. It'll be packing it back and forth.
So that's gonna take it and pull, and
Here's the cookie.
he's running it.
He's going in the middle of your fence.
He's running it through that hole as he's going, and if he has maybe 30 posts to get there, he's running the 3 top hole. So when he gets to the end, you can explain.
Yeah. So the way we like to end you want to get some soft wire. So the way we like to end these is
What you just cut there?
some soft wire.
Our clip.
galvanized 12 gauge.
Soft galvanized 12 gauge for the clips.
You're gonna need to put this in because I don't have the pliers.
Now you do.
Now and then, so when you get to the end, and if you don't have a clip or anything, if you got a spare, and you just stick them in the ground so it doesn't poke somebody in the eye. But so what we'll do? What?
You gotta drill your post.
You gotta drill the post. You know, there's already a hole in here. It's amazing.
Yeah, not up at the time.
So these will be little clips. So then what you're gonna do is you're gonna go in that clip, right? Which is gonna prevent your wire from sliding up and down. And you gotta give yourself enough slack to do this. But what you're basically gonna do is bend it all the way around. So you got a loop. And then you give yourself a handle, like so. And then if you want to hold tension on this, there will be tension if you're pulling it any kind of distance. You're just going to start wrapping it.
Get nervous, everybody's looking at that knot.
It's really satisfying when you get it right.
Man's knot down there. Just go on and touch it each wind as you wind it up. You look at it when it's done. No crimp. No crimp.
No crimp. So you go like 4 or 5 times. Then you said just bend it back,
Well, yeah, you can. You can bend. You can break it off if you want to.
or you can just clip it. But sometimes what we'll do is leave these on because we can use this as like if you got a feeder wire going up or going underneath something, or to tie it into another wire or something. You don't really want to clip these off unless you know for sure that you're not going to need an extra little piece.
Just to be safe, folks, don't clip those off until you're done.
Yep.
You have 5 of them. Hey, you may need to use them. I like to leave a foot sticking out.
And then once you're in, you just start twist this clip in like
So,
so.
what are you doing there, Ben?
We're just twisting the soft wire so that it'll keep the wire from sliding.
If it's timeless, you wouldn't have to do that.
No, if it's fiberglass, you have to do that to every single one.
So then on the way back, after you've pulled your wire and you've ended it, on the way back, then you get to the middle with your tensioner. And if you're pulling a long stretch, you want to go to the middle. If you've got a short stretch, you can get by just going on the end. But with these daisies, how it works is the wire goes through the center of the daisy, with some tension, and this is the tool, and it just wraps on the tensioner itself.
Oh.
There's no cutting, none of that, and so you get it started, and then there's these handy little things right here. You can hook it on, and it'll stay. It's kind of dangerous or like scary, but it'll stay on the wire supposedly. And then you can take these little pins.
Make sure you got in the right holes.
Yep. And go through the holes, and so then when you let it off, it stops it from unwinding.
And then you cone at the end. What do you do next?
And you do another hang ends on that side.
Go ahead and put it on.
Cut it. Yeah, you do. You
Do you bend the clip back so we don't fall out?
There's tension on it.
You don't tie it off. Get your daisy on there. You go tighten it on here, you're not going to have enough wrap on it.
And just for the sake of argument, there would be another clip right here to keep them sliding. Yeah, if you want to grab one.
You guys do it right.
Yeah, if it ever gets loose, you can just retighten it, no problem.
We usually run all 5. We're running a 5-wire fence. Just go ahead and run all 5 and then go back and start pinching it.
Yeah.
You know, like a guitar string. Now pull, you don't want it too tight. All you do is put an excess wear on your corner.
So you just go ahead and put the end post in, and then.
What's the difference between
Those posts that they're pulling on there, folks, that's a line post.
Right.
Yeah,
5/8.
this isn't a normal corner.
No.
We brought some thicker posts, but we forgot to
forgot
drill
to
them,
drill.
so we had to use these.
What's the difference between the soft wire and the wire that's putting out for the fence?
you can feel the difference. It's so hard to bend and work that wire. Actually, we have a little, like this is high tensile, and this is soft wire. So like if you try to bend the ends of them, you can come up and try it. Like no,
Don't cut yourself.
Don't cut yourself. Both 12. That's high tensile.
Is that 9?
And then
No, they're
try
both
bending
12
that one.
What's the tensile strength that you use on your high
You know,
tensile?
there's a way
This one's 180,000
Yeah.
psi.
You don't want the 210.
180,000 feet.
You can't bend it.
It's too brittle.
Yeah.
So then usually you'd come back to the middle in a normal stretch, and once you've got it, like say if you're running a single wire, you come back, and then you tighten it up, like what you'd want it tight. In this case, it's not going to get any tighter than this.
Well, you can crank it. Go ahead and
Can you
crank it a little bit. You can take a little of that bow out. Maybe.
I had some
Don't crack
Amish
it.
building a fence, and they stretched 5 wires, but they didn't attach to any post, and I thought this is going to be a nightmare. But I hated to tell them, hated to say anything. But at the end, he got a post like one of these tread ends, put all 5 wires on that, and walked from post to post, and he got all the insulators straight. He got it, it worked.
I'll be darned.
I thought it was
Dan, show him how to break that off.
He didn't leave himself a very long handle.
Yeah, I think. What's the name of that tool? This is just the daisy tensioner tool. I don't know. Does it have a specific name? Greg, do you know?
What's
if
that?
tool has a specific name?
Which one?
This tensioner.
This is a daisy tensioner tool.
Clever name.
So, yeah, that's high tensile. I mean, it's as simple as you make it. So, and you got non-conductive posts.
All 5 hot?
It depends what you're trying to fence in. If you're running sheep in really brushy area, folks, that bottom wire is going to have a lot of vegetative load on it. And I like to attack a sheep at where he's grazing at. So I'll use it on second, third, and fourth wire. If I'm running a 4-wire fence, the second, the third wire hot, maybe the bottom wire is ground. If you make that bottom wire hot on a real rainy period and that thing's touching a lot of green leaves, then you're never going to keep it hot. So,
I
usually
make them
sheep,
all where they can be hot, but then I don't make it.
yeah, sheep's going to attack right in here. That's really going to go.
But how much wire did you start with after the?
You have the bottom wire of ground,
You're
and
making
they go through
like
the
a
second
little
wire
over a
with
foot.
the top.
Yeah,
Their belly's
it better
gonna
be more than
ground,
less,
and
because you can always trim it, but you can never add
Now
more.
you have that handle.
Yeah, exactly. You have to give yourself a good little handle.
Gonna go from the pond, come up, make a 90, and hook on hot here. And then we're gonna show you how to hook on cold here and run to the and make it hot on the poly wire.
Yep. Show them a sheep corner post. How to do our sheep
Did you
corner
do
post
all that
on
by
a horse.
hand or did you?
Yeah, you need gloves though,
Yeah.
just so you don't poke yourself.
You can, or you
Pretty good.
I have done that on a sheep farm every
I like doing those hangman.
So we're gonna go down to the pond to show you the
I'm
sheep
usually using the
sheep
thinner
watering
wires,
system for the pond.
I'm glad you're doing this stuff.
So you let sheep drink out of the pond?
Yep. And sheep don't like water. They're not like cattle. They won't go into the middle of a pond. So our way to keep them, we can kind of use the pond as a fence in a way.
They won't go around that pigtail. Okay.
So this is how we do our braces. You clip the pigtail in there, and if it pulls, it's got a stopper right there. And then to get the sheep height, we run a post right here where they're going to be on land, and so we'll tie onto a pigtail because that's obviously too tall for sheep. Bring it right down to this. Run it right down to the sheep height.
Yeah.
And then we can run it up and do our sheep height the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Try and show you the Slipknot.
So, like, if anyone's ever interested in interning here, you're gonna tie 9 million Slipknots by the time you're done. But it's basically, the way that I think about it is like, you come out, I always keep it on the right side. I go under to make a loop. Then you go through the loop, but you don't pull your slack all the way through, and that's your Slipknot. And so it tightens down, and whenever you want to undo it, you just pull the tail and it's free. So it just saves a lot of hassle and headache of having to undo real knots. And so you end up getting pretty good at tying slip knots because we do them all the time. And then we like to use, this is the ideal clip for sheep height, but I mean, if you run into it, it breaks off, you just either go above or below. It's no problem. And then you run it from the pole.
Why won't sheep go out there, Ben?
Because they're afraid of the water. They don't like getting wet. If that was cattle, they'd laugh at you. They'd just swim out there, come all the way back in. So we'd have to fence this whole pond off. And that's what we usually do if we run cattle in his backyard, is you gotta put a fence around the whole thing.
This is our cattle paddock you are on. The only time it gets mowed is for the grazing school. Thank you.
Okay. So we're gonna go hook on hot on this other end.
So Greg, will the sheep keep the pond edge clean?
Oh yeah.
What about
My
cattails?
pond edge looks like crap.
I'll work it over.
Will they do cattails?
Oh yeah. If they can reach them, now if the cattails out in the water, they're not going to catch them.
They grow up raised sheep, and that's brought it home.
Cattle is like 9-ish. I don't know. We don't measure it out every time. It's definitely closer to the sheep. Okay,
What you got
so
there, Ben? Is that a temporary corner?
so this is a temporary corner. So if you were gonna make this, like say this is a paddock, put your hot wires over there, and we're gonna graze sheep in here. To get from here to there, you can't put or just a normal step in right here because there's so much pressure on that corner that it'll just bend over and fall out. So you have to use a pigtail with a brace. And if this was a really long stretch to get to our fence, we could put another brace going this direction to give it a little bit more support. So again, we're tying another version of the slip knot, but this time because we got to come off, we're going to use a double. So,
So Ben, why are you tying a knot there when we could just run through there and hook it? Explain that.
because it's really hard to maintain tension on this line when you're pulling it from that direction around a 90-degree bend. So this way, when we tie it off here, we can set our tension going down this way, and then we'll have a secondary set of tension going this way. We don't have to try to pull it all the way around.
Folks, what makes one-wire sheep work is tight. Tight. If you've got a floppity fence out there, forget about it.
This is
They're
exactly
going to be out
what
in
it
1
looks
hour. They'll be gone.
On the regular poles, you're doing 12 inches up. Is that what you're doing?
like. Yeah, that's the sheep height clip right there.
Okay.
And you can run a post right next to it to knock it down to the sheep height.
Yeah, so like normally we'd have another post right here. Why don't you just
Because the sheep are not going to come through here. Go ahead and do that, Isaac.
So to tie the knot, what I'll do just to maintain some tension, once I got my tension right, I'll wrap it once, just around, just to take some of the tension off. And then because this is doubled, you could just pull it through like a normal knot, because it'll come undone pretty easily. And then maybe your second one, you can tie a slip knot, which is just through, but don't pull your slack all the way through, like so. And now you got a slip knot. And to take it off, you always pull the single loop, not the double loop. So you pull the single loop and that'll come undone. So now we got that. We'll go over to our hot fence that we just built. 1 million volts. And the way we attach these, so you find a post so your reel doesn't slide back and forth. And you come, so you're unreeling it, you come up from the back of the reel. And this takes a little bit of practice to get the tension right, and on a really short distance it's kind of tricky. But you reel it to get your tension. You sort of eyeball the measurement, but don't touch it. And then you come up from the back, wrap it around here 3 times, 4 times, whatever you need for the tension. Maybe we'll go one more. Nope, that's too much. Then you lock your reel so it doesn't backslide on you. Now, if you hold this handle, you'll be fine. And if you hold this, you'll be fine. But if you have your thumb or your finger touching right there, you'll know it's touching right there. And so,
Hold on, Ben. Hold on. You're messing up.
what?
Before you put that on there, where's that wire need to go?
What?
There.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
okay.
gonna, yeah, right. You want, like, if it's off like that, that's no good. You want it coming straight back. So, and then you hook her on.
Quickly let go of it.
Now, you don't need to quickly let go of it because I mean, sometimes if you're really nervous, you'll just like, you can, if you have confidence.
And then you can shake your step in, come in here for the sheep, put it in an angle, and it'll pull that wire down to the right sheep height.
Yep.
Just like that.
And you always put them right next to the pole, correct?
Yep. Just
Yep.
they're not going to go through there. That's intimidating for them. But so just
So
keeping.
now that's hot.
You can even
Yep.
and you can even put the posts.
When you pick
Right
up on
there.
it, it's the
It's
same
not. They're not
deal.
going to go through.
Yep.
Make darn sure you have in that handle.
Just like this is safe, but if you go like that, you'll shock the hell out of yourself.
One of the big things is he ended up there. He's
It's a
done,
self-correcting
so he
problem.
made
Yeah.
it hot there instead of having to go back to if there was another hot fence down there.
That's
You
right.
change the handle so it's time saver.
Work it cold, not hot.
But he couldn't do this at the top.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Couldn't tie the knot if this was all electrified. You're playing with fire if you're trying to unreel a hot
Let me
wire.
show y'all something else. So let's just say Ben and Isaac are going down in a draw. So we've got a low draw here. You stick that post straight down in that draw, just like that. It's not going to stay in soft ground. So anytime you go down in a draw, always put it
Two
in
of
a
them.
45 like that. And then when your wire goes on there, it's got to pull it out of that ground at a 45. It's not going to do it. If you put it straight in, there go your sheep or your cows. They're going to walk right underneath it because that post is going to go boink, and there goes your animal. So always put it at a 45.
Greg, do you mind if I say one thing real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Like if this is a metal T-post,
Yep.
you can't get away with doing that. So, I mean, I love this and it looks good and clean and you don't have to carry near as many posts with you. But Isaac, where's your corner? So my corner, because I've got metal T-posts, looks just like that with a metal T-post. I take and I do, you know, a corner and I tie it off, but we don't have another one of these pigtails. So I'll just say like, so I take that and I tie this off so it's tight, and then, so just remember that's tight right there. And I'll take it, oh, it's wrapped.
Oh yeah, you're not used to.
No,
Yeah.
I don't wrap them, and it keeps me from getting shocked less. I mean, I would never critique Greg Judy, but I'll do this
Yeah.
a few times, and I never get shocked this way. And I'll come back, and I'll go,
Now you're working with something hot there.
yeah. Sorry, I'm not as good at talking, but so I'll come back here, and I'll find out where I want this post at, and remember it's tied with tension where he's at, and I'll go like that right there, and that's hot. And then if it's full like this, I'll put a brace, but if it's not full, because it's probably not gonna be, I'll just do like that and like that, and that's how all mine look right now. And then you can tighten it.
But see, you can't leave it like that because he's ground it out.
Yeah,
Well, the PowerFlex, if you go to, I didn't notice that. My PowerFlex posts are
A lot
this
further down.
insulator comes down to
Okay.
here,
Yep.
and I don't know. It's just another. But that's the cool thing about this is like, you know, you can do it however suits you. But that right there keeps me from getting shocked. Because I swear, every time I try to do that little wrap, and the other thing is you just, and Greg, I feel like I've seen you in a video before when you're not at a post. I feel like I've seen you put one of these,
Oh yeah.
maybe, and maybe one of these next to it and hang it,
Yep.
and it kind of gives you something to hang it off of, but
It keeps it from sliding.
yeah.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when I try to wrap that, I end up getting popped sometimes. It's just part of it.
That's
but-
where that remote comes in. Just turn it off, get
Yeah.
it on there, and back away.
And Greg, when I put a
Across your
water,
farm. Now they're going to strip graze, starting at the water source away from that rectangle. That's what they're putting in right now.
So we're gonna take a pigtail. Obviously, this fence is hot, so you don't want to touch the metal to the wire. Take your pigtail, set it in so it's facing back the way this one is. And ground. Then you take your brace, hook it up, get that bend in there. So he's got it straight. And so now Ben will come in.
I come in, and then this is where it takes a little bit of, I like to be on this side because it makes more sense in my head. But if you gotta sort of think about, all right, I gotta wrap around there, I'll give myself a little bit of slack, do your wrap, right? Need a little more slack. So now what you're doing, remember, this is hot. So a second I touch this wire to here, everything's gonna be hot that's metal in this reel. So you gotta make sure you're holding the handle. And you go down the pigtail and around. Oh my.
You get practice at it. It's scary. But
And then you just hook it back on there. And now, like Greg was saying, you gotta watch. You gotta watch to make sure that your full reel isn't touching your metal pigtail because it'll ground it out, right?
Here's from a non-hot wire with the handle.
This is a pretty cool
Hang it on the pigtail, and then that wire
if you
is
screw up
touching
and
the
you
metal.
forget which side is hot, and you
You gotta
show
put
up and you got the wrong thing, you're like, oh man, but then you can go back.
Run it up and around the handle
Like a luggage tag.
like a luggage tag, and it's tight. And there's no way it pulls as much as you can on this, and it's not going to come out. You hook your handle on like that. Now, let's see it over here. Now you can take this handle, and this is already hooked up. It's all cold, and you take your handle and you wrap it to make it hot. So you just wrap this wire. This is kind of like what you're doing, Chase. You wrap the wire around the handle, and then you just leave it hang, and that's what's making it hot.
Because all the tension's on that other one.
Yeah, and then that's getting pulled straight right there.
Yeah.
And
So why would you want to do that?
Say you show up, say you screwed up and you forget which end is hot, and you run your reel all the way down here, and you're like, oh no, it's barbed wire. And then you're like, oh, I got to go back and undo the whole thing. It's like, no, you don't. You could go back and make it hot on that side.
Or instances where we have creek crossings where we just got to stretch a wire, we don't have a reel.
Yeah.
We'll have a handle on one end, and on the other end we'll have this scenario where we hook it on, and then we use another handle tied to a tail to make it hot, make the creek crossing hot.
Yeah.
All of our creek crossings are pre-measured. When we're done, we take them up, we hang them in a tree. So when we get to that creek and our mob move, there it is. We grab it out of the tree, run it through the fence, through the creek, make it hot, and you're done.
Posts already in the creek they got little, kind of like pigtails. They're
If you
fiberglass
get in the
rods.
practice of putting a geared reel on a creek crossing, you're going to lose it. Creek's going to come up and take it. What if it takes that? So what?
Creeks love electronet.
Oh man. You haven't lost anything but a couple plastic handles.
And a little bit of poly tape or
Yep.
poly rope or whatever you're using.
Yeah.
You ever put in stretches of fence that are so long you run out of a reel?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so
We can do that.
On that.
So that in that scenario, you never. So if you untie and you run out of reel, because we never tie the reels or the wire to the reel, it just runs out and stays there. And so you want to leave that reel exactly where you ran out is, because the thing is, you put it in your four-wheeler, take off. The next time you're reeling it up, you get there. Oh, where's the reel? We left it in the truck half a mile back to the truck. So
always leave it in the paddock on the opposite side of where the animals are.
And
Leave
so
it on their side, they're going to play with it.
And so when you run out of that, you come in with your poly wire, you get a brand new reel, and you tie a slip knot.
So this is the end of your reel
Yep.
that you just finished.
And the reel's sitting on the ground here.
Empty.
And you take your new wire, and you put them together, and you're basically making a knot. It's a slip knot, like you're tying a knot, and you're leaving that excess in there, and that's not coming out. There's enough conductivity to transfer power.
Could you do that again, please?
It's not coming out. Yeah, I can do that. And then plus the nice thing about that, you pull those, and they're done. They came out. So it's basically like it's another slip knot, another version.
Basically
of
a
it.
shoestring knot.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Put them together.
So you make a circle, stick the tail through, pull it tight, and then when you pull these, it just makes it
And
tighter.
if you want to be super conservative, make sure you're carrying plenty of voltage. Maybe you got a highway up here. Tie two of them. Tie another one.
Then you go in here and you make another one. Make a circle.
right behind it. Now you got double. You got double knot, double the conductivity.
And so now you've got that knot pulling. So when you're ready to go, you take the knot, pull it out, take these knots, and you're done.
Done.
Your reel's laying right there.
Your reel's on the ground. Yep. You finish up that reel, tie it up, and then you hook onto the next reel and you go.
Show them how you start a reel. No, you don't have an
We
input.
don't have an empty one.
Folks, if you tie that onto that steel little bar, you tie a knot in there. Your tape, man, it's going to burn you because you're going across the paddock and it's on the four-wheeler. You come to the knot, you'll see it. Wham! Crash your
real.
ear. And it's going to hit the ground and it's going to break. It's going to break this. So just stick it through this little steel bars right
There's
here.
just the two little steel bars. I like to do a loop and stick it through both of them, and then so you just slowly reel, make sure you don't pull it out of there. And once you get going, then you can put some tension on it and go.
I ran over one of these with my four-wheeler, and epoxy can fix the cracks. Two-part epoxy can fix them
And
up.
zip ties. You have some with
And
zip
You
ties.
got zip ties with some.
Yeah. Boy, that
got
was
some
sad.
you can't fix.
You all can see that, but there's one little slot that you can put a wire through and another slot that you can hook onto another one. And so we'd use this in a scenario where, like,
Right there.
yeah, like you're gonna go, say there's a little
There's
draw,
nowhere to hook to.
and there's, yeah, you're in the middle of a fence somewhere and you got a dip and you're worried about calves or something going underneath there. You go through your, this is for conductivity, not for strength. So if you're gonna be pulling any tension on this, you can't use this kind of a crimp. But if it's just gonna be drooping down and back up to the wire, you hook, this is cold obviously, you turn everything off. You hook that on like that and make sure that it's facing away from you because you gotta push into it.
So this crimping tool, it's got two slots. It's got the one for the big open-end crimp, and then it's got one for the small crimp that we're going to show in a minute. So, like you said, you got to push. Once you get it into the slot,
Don't crimp your buddy's finger.
yep, you got to make sure it's lined up. Push. Oops.
Hold on, let me get a little more tail.
If you get on the other side, Isaac, you have a better angle. on it.
Got
We
it.
got her.
Okay.
Just put some pressure to it. Get a good crimp. Because if you don't push the pressure forward, that crimp's going to close, not on the wire. And so it's just, you're not going to have the
You wasted
conductivity.
it.
That's the first one I did, and I just went, oop, crimped it on. And he's like, oh, you're going to have to do that again. I was like, oh, dang it. Yeah.
So then we'll just cut, we can just cut a tail off of this to show the other one. But we'll leave that on so you guys can see that.
So that crimp, guys, what is that crimp made out of?
Aluminum.
Aluminum.
Highly conductive. It's way more conductive than if you were to come up and like wrap your wire around it, because that would be an alternative, but you're not going to get as good a charge going through that.
And no
with the-
arcing. You won't get any arcing with that crimp.
Yeah, but if you have pulling any tension on that, it'll pop off pretty
If you
easy.
just wrap your wire, that can slide.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So these crimps are when you have two ends that you can crimp onto.
Yep.
So you can slide both ends of the wire.
Now
We're
that
gonna
one
go
is
this
made out
way.
of what?
It's steel, isn't
Steel.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a lot stronger crimp.
Well, this is like something that gets busted and you put it back together.
Yep.
Air runs through it or something like
Or
that.
if you're building fence in the wheel here, you got to put a new piece on it. So keep going. Double and put two on.
Okay.
Two crimps.
And we might do this on one of these tails if we're going up and over or something like that.
So this crimp, you just take the smaller end then, and you don't have to worry about the pressure forward anymore. Just get her lined up and crimp it.
Seems like I heard, guys, it takes 3 of these shorter ones to equal the strength of the wire. They also make a double crimp. I think you can just
Another
use
thing,
2 of those.
yeah, another thing we do is we'll take this wire that we just crimped, and we'll bend it back over.
So you got two hooks going like this, so it can't pull itself through.
So you guys will just use 1 always.
We could use 2 if we feel like there's going to be a lot of tension
If
being
you
pulled
bend
on.
that wire over like he's bending it right there,
There's no way it's
one's
gonna-
satisfactory.
You're gonna bend both tails.
Yeah, you
so-
bend both tails
If there was a
back.
Yeah.
Didn't leave enough on that.
Yeah.
I have found
So
that like I rolled that old wire up. I did the bend thing and I rolled it, that stretch up, and then I put it on another.
Yeah, you can.
And that those hooks will hook on that wire
Oh, yeah.
all the time.
Oh, yeah.
My brother had the idea to put like electrical tape around it, and they'll probably keep
Yeah.
They don't hook.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that with the stretch. You crimp on, do the double wire, roll it up, and then you can roll it right back out like it was just brand new fence.
Yeah.
Works pretty
When I
good.
lost that 700-acre farm, the Amish,
Roller that has teeth on it. When you insert the wire into the hole, it works like Chinese handcuffs. It will not let the wire back out unless you put a flag tool into this real small hole at the bottom, and you will release that roller, then it'll allow you to back the wire back out. Otherwise, it's a one-way entry point only. There's a hole on each side, so you can use these to splice 2 wires together. And if you have the tool, you can use it to tension the wire.
while the power's on.
This tool is actually called a torque tool. If you see down here in the bottom, it's got a torque feature. It's almost like a torque wrench. You can dial up the amount of pressure that you want on your high tensile wire. You can pull, every time you squeeze these handles, it will pull slack out of the wire. I'll demonstrate that in a second. And when you get to your dialed up tension, the handles will make a audible clicking sound like a torque wrench. So what we'll do is we'll just cut the wire here. And we're going to slide the gripple on. Slide the other end there. All right. Now, more slack on this side. Yeah. I'll just come the other side.
Yeah.
That side. Oh,
You got to have enough slack here to get a hold of your jaw. Watch this.
all right. Slide the gripple on. You open it up. Slide your tail end into the jaws. Every time you squeeze, it will pull slack and continue to tighten that fence up.
Oh, and you don't have to crimp that piece.
Right. It just stays on there.
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of nice to have a piece on each end long enough that you can tighten it from either side of your fence.
So you wouldn't need that daisy thing then?
No, no.
This is just an alternative.
What's that cost, Brad?
The gripples themselves are about $1.25 a piece. You get them in jars of 25 or 200. The tool, depending on, there's two different tools. This is what they call the torque tool, or there's a contractor version, which is made of more metal parts than plastic. The tool will cost you $70. I'm selling a few for $50, or you can get the contractor version for $90.
Quick couplers. It's the one that we saw by the tank today, down recessed. This is plumbed into your polyethylene pipe or whatever, however you got power coming. So that's in the ground. This is the male end. This is so as many water points as you have to buy the female end. But the male end, you only need one per tank, and then maybe a couple backup to have in the truck. We have like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Like one in the truck and one in each four-wheeler in case we get there and we need one. So you come in and you got your tank all set up and you're ready to go, and all you have to do to plug it in is just like that, and you've got pressure.
When it's actually hooked up and you have pressure behind that spring, you really got to shove it in there to get it to
and you'll feel it. The hose will go just.
So
and then
what,
to release it,
guys, once you plug that in and this fills up, what do you check before you walk off?
you got to check. So and you can do this before it fills up if you just pull on this lever to stop it from going in. You want to check all your
Why you pull up on that for?
It shuts off the valve.
And what's it do?
Mega flow valve.
It puts pressure on your fitting.
And so you're checking right here, this fitting connecting the hose to the male end. You're checking the female fitting. You can check right in here to make sure nothing's leaking, because a little leak overnight can add up to a lot. So you never want to leave without.
And when you put your tank down and you first plug it in, the water will start filling in here, and before it gets too heavy, look and see is it level? Because the water will run to one side and show you which end is down, and then just shove a little board shims underneath it to get it level. Because if it's not level, I mean, it's gonna overflow.
Mess up your flow, and you could overflow.
It could overflow.
So to unhook it, all you got to do is just press this little lever, and it'll spray a little bit, but it'll pop it out of it. So
and then the spring engages, and there's no more water coming out of here.
What is that connected to right there?
This is connected to high density polyethylene pipe, inch and a half?
PVC. Inch and a half.
And talk about the threads too, because those aren't garden hose threads.
No.
Right. Those are NPT.
Yeah. So what they've got here, that's pipe thread, not garden hose. Here's garden hose thread. And so you've got to buy an adapter. See, this does not come with garden hose thread. I can't. More stronger than I thought. See, this piece here you got to buy separate. This is an adapter. So the garden hose on the female on the end, that's pipe thread. And put a little piece of Teflon tape in there. If you try and screw that garden hose onto here, you just ruin that piece. Because it's going to strip all those threads, you'll never get it to seal. You can buy these at any hardware store. PowerFlex carries these plastic ones. I think they're like 80 cents, dollars. They're not expensive. But don't try and screw garden hose onto that. It won't work. Same way on the the float. That float right there's got the same thing. It's got pipe threads on it.
You want to talk about the hose? This one?
Yeah, you notice this hose? That's that came out from the hydraulic place where you can buy this is a lifetime guaranteed hose. I've had this hose for probably 20 years. It's still a stout hose. If you use latex, the cheapest latex hose you can buy at any hardware store, you're going to regret it.
Because what'll happen on a very hot day, this thing will get pregnant, and a big old bubble will show up in it, and poof, it blows up. You don't have any water for your animal, and you got it wrecked. So get a good hose, and well, right here.
It doesn't have to be very long either.
No.
I mean, depending on how far you want to get away from your
This
water.
is a 25 footer. We usually normally use 50. The longer the hose you use, the less pressure you have.
But you have a chance to get it away from. You can be a lot more flexible with where you're going.
You could maybe put in fewer water points too, but
yeah. Well, always put a predator over it. So there's a predator behind us. That pond. This is laying out on the ground all day long. The cattle stepping on this 24 hours a day. Big mom. This hose isn't going to last. I've never let that happen. I'll always put a poly wire from here right across that hose. Because if a cow steps right here, folks, and busts that valve off, you're done. You ruined a Jode Megaflow, and now you've got a mess. So don't let them step on that. And if you leave it unexposed, I've seen cows come up on a hot day, because it's cool, make it a candy bar and start chewing on it. There's a hot wire around it, they're not going to be chewing on it.
So yeah, we'll put, when we're setting up a tank, we'll put one fiberglass rod here, and like on the tank where we put 4, we'll put 1 on each corner, but on this one we just put 3. And so then you use this to tie on your poly wire, run it along, and just follow to make it hot somewhere.
It'd look more like this, but these would be like 6 footers.
6 footers.
Yeah. If you don't put those fiberglass rods in on a large herd, folks, we're wintering cattle with this tank. 350 head out of that tank. The beautiful thing about it at night, you take this tank, unhook it from the hydrant, dump it, throw it on your foil, take it back to your heated garage. They don't need water at night. They just don't.
In the wintertime.
In the wintertime. So bring it back with you in the morning, plug it in, you've got water.
Is this where you throw those tire sidewalls down?
Yep.
On these right here?
Yep.
And the big 100 gallons, we'll put them on each end.
Yeah, in the summertime we use a 100-gallon movable tank. But in the wintertime, you get by with this. This old tank has been around for 30 years. I can't even find these anymore. Kentucky Grazing Supply used to sell these.
They're out of business.
They're out of business.
Now this
Got the couplers
So we got
going
a
over there.
6-inch cap over here.
Going over here.
That's PVC pipe down in the ground.
You already explained why you put that on there.
Got to put that in there, folks. That's the most important part. You're going to reach down that hole in the dark, there's going to be a possum in there. It's dead. It's been in there for about 2 months.
Speaking from experience, right?
Yes.
So that female end is buried down in there.
So there's a cap on the female end, so we'll go down, make sure you close that cap every time you're done. Just keep critters from getting in there and clogging up your float when you turn on. So this is just, I'm just going to push it in and click it into the female end. You'll see how quick we get pressure.
Just going in.
That's pretty quick.
Cut off whenever that.
So this is the new version. They actually twist off. And this is your screen. It catches all your debris. It keeps everything from getting up in there. And that could be a spider web, a cricket, anything. This little screen on here is pretty cool. The old one you had to take it all apart. The new one's just twist on.